There is a quiet crisis that's happening in the church right now. It's not just on stages. We're seeing it on social media, but it's not really social media, and it's not in the metrics. It's happening inside the hearts of pastors. These are good men, faithful women, shepherds who love people deeply, but they're tired in places they don't know how to talk about. And if I'm being honest, this podcast exists because I am one of them. I have a story, I have a background. Welcome to the Shepherd's Tent with Mark Casto. If you've listened to this podcast before, you may notice something different. Not just the name, but the aim and the direction. This isn't a rebrand. It's really a return back to original intent, a return back to presence, a return to union, a return to the slow, grounded work of shepherding souls in a world that is moving far too fast. Guys, this podcast is now intentionally and unapologetically aimed for pastors and church leaders. I don't care what denomination you're in, traditions, backgrounds. This is for you who want to lead well without losing yourselves. Guys, I grew up a preacher's kid. I watched my parents give everything they had to the church, their time, their energy, their emotional bandwidth, their health, sometimes without even realizing it. Guys, I saw the beauty of ministry and I saw the cost. And I remember promising myself as a kid, I will never do that. I loved God, I loved people, but I didn't want to do life the way I saw them do it. But guys, at the end of the day, I love the presence of Jesus. I love the move of the Spirit. And you can't love Jesus and the move of the Spirit and shake your love for people. Guys, that love for people and my heart and passion for Jesus led to early success in ministry, fast growth, crowds, momentum, conferences with thousands. Our church was growing by the hundreds. I was traveling 42 plus weekends a year. And guys, from the outside, it looked like I had arrived. But inside, something was deteriorating. Something was breaking. And what I didn't have language for at that time was this. I wasn't living from union with God. I was living from performance for God. And the Christianity that I inherited, especially in my Pentecostal upbringing, had taught me how to move powerfully without ever teaching me how to rest securely. I loved Jesus, but I was anxious. I preached freedom, but I lived pressured. I helped people encounter God, but I had lost my own interior stillness. And eventually, guys, my interior world fell apart. Anxiety, exhaustion, a constant sense of being on. Guys, that unspoken fear that if I slowed down, everything would collapse. And guys, that's the trap many pastors are in right now. Guys, we confuse faithfulness with frantic activity. We confuse fruitfulness with visibility. We confuse calling with constant availability. And no one tells you how dangerous that confusion is until it costs you everything. And what followed for me wasn't a quick fix. It was a slow, painful, beautiful journey back to the gospel. And not the gospel as a tool for success, not the gospel as a motivator, but the gospel as good news for the soul. Guys, the reality is I had to relearn who God was. I had to relearn who I was. I had to let go of the idea of ministry success. I had to let that die so that something truer could be born. After taking several years off from that early years of success, then I was sent again to plant another church. In 2019, we planted a church in Covington, Georgia. Guys, 2020, COVID hit. You guys already know all the challenges with that. Then in 2021, my wife and I lost a child in a miscarriage. And then in 2022, we lost our salary and were forced out of our home. Then in 2023, once we felt like we were getting back on our feet, on my birthday, our church building was destroyed by a massive fire. And eventually, after fighting to reimagine church, we shut the ministry down and we left the city that we thought we would be buried in. Now, friend, that's not a sob story. That's formation. I would walk through every moment again if it meant becoming more like Jesus and loving people better. And you can call me naive, most people do, but I refuse to see God or humanity through any lens other than Jesus himself. Not fear, not cynicism, not metrics, not modern church success formulas. Jesus, gentle, present, unhurried, clear-eyed, faithful. That's the kind of shepherd the world needs right now. Guys, we're living in a time of global transition, church reformation in the West, technological acceleration, cultural anxiety, relentless speed, and pastors are uniquely positioned not to accelerate it, but to slow people down, to anchor lives again to the beauty of the gospel, to remind people that the kingdom of God is not frantic, to shepherd souls back into the presence of God. But the reality is you cannot lead people into rest if you, the pastor, are living exhausted. And that's why the shepherd's tent exists. Guys, this podcast is not here to impress you. It's here to sit with you, to help you breathe again, to help you think clearly again, to help you shepherd from wholeness, not survival. So let's shift the conversation just slightly here, because I want to talk honestly about pastors and my heart for you, obviously with money and survival, and why I believe God is inviting church leaders into a better way of building. So stay with me here, okay? And if you're still with me, I appreciate it. Thank you. That tells me something about you, that you're ready to listen, you're ready to learn, and you just need a voice to bring some confirmation to you. It tells me that you're not looking for another leadership hack, another sermon series idea, or another way to survive the next Sunday. You're looking for a way of life that doesn't cost you your soul. And I want you to know before we go any further, you're not broken. Many pastors I talk to, they don't feel sinful. They just feel trapped in systems they didn't create, but are expected to sustain. Trapped in expectations they didn't agree to, but are judged by. Trapped between loving people and meeting metrics. And quietly, often privately, they're asking, is this really what faithfulness looks like? And here's the hard truth that we all need to say out loud, okay? Many pastors are not burning out because they lack devotion. They're burning out because they're trapped in systems that reward exhaustion. And some of those systems look like performance-based Christianity dressed up as excellence, metrics-driven leadership that replaces discernment with dashboards, church growth models that scale crowds but starve families, theological cultures that celebrate sacrifice but never ask who is paying the price, economic structures where pastors carry spiritual responsibility without financial stability. And let me be clear, this isn't about bad motives. It's about unexamined systems. And systems don't need to be evil to be destructive. I'm going to say that again. Systems don't have to be evil to be destructive. For me, this pressure was amplified by the Pentecostal stream I was raised in. I love my roots. I honor what they gave me. But alongside the fire and the faith, there was also an unspoken message. If you slow down, you're backsliding. If you rest, you're getting dull. If you struggle, your faith must be weak. So I learned how to minister powerfully without ever learning how to live securely. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Guys, let's talk honestly, okay? Let's just take a moment. Let's talk honestly about money for a moment, okay? Many pastors are having to work bivocationally, okay? Not because they want to be, but because they have to. Guys, there are many that are working a full-time job, leading a church, carrying emotional weight, trying to be present spouses and parents, and doing it all on fumes. Friend, that's not heroic. That's unsustainable. And here's the lie that keeps pastors silent. If I talk about money, I'm being unspiritual. No, if you ignore reality, you're being unwise. Guys, between 2022 and 2024, my life stripped down to the studs. Loss of income, loss of security, loss of ministry structures that I thought were permanent. And I wrestled with God, not in rebellion, but in honesty. And what I came to see was this: God wasn't punishing me. He was retraining me, teaching me how to build without anxiety, teaching me how to lead without fear, teaching me how to provide for my family without grinding my soul into dust. I believe God allowed me to go first into that dark place so that I could come back, just like he did with the Apostle Peter, and say, there's a better way, and you need to go and strengthen the brethren. So guys, here's something that we need to recover, especially for pastors. Entrepreneurship is not worldly. Multiplying your wisdom is not greedy. Provision is not opposed to faith. Pastors have always been creators. We create sermons, liturgies, curriculum, counseling materials, communities, culture. Pastors, we create this stuff. And the tragedy is that we've taught pastors to give away their wisdom for free while burning themselves out and then feel guilty for wanting margin. And let me just say this for people who are not pastors. If you have never been a pastor, if you've never walked a mile in their shoes, you don't get an opinion about this. Okay? Now, again, I'm not talking about people that have abused resources and finances. I'm not talking about that. But what I'm saying is, I'm tired of these ministers taking on the full responsibility and the weight of a ministry, burning themselves out, and then being made feel guilty for wanting margin. Okay? So what if your wisdom could mature the saints, reach beyond the four walls of your building, create financial stability, restore time with your family, free you from constant anxiety, not so you can consume more, but so you can shepherd better. Imagine a life where you're not rushed. Your income isn't tied only to Sunday attendance. Your family gets your best hours. Your ministry flows from the rest. Your leadership is rooted in union and not urgency. And friend, that's not fantasy. That's what this podcast is about, helping pastors rediscover. Guys, I don't come to you as someone who figured it out early. I come to you as someone who burned out, repented, rebuilt, and guys, I've made 1,000 mistakes and I'm still learning. But I want to say to pastors, I see you. I understand the weight that you carry. And my commitment is simple. I will not lead you somewhere I haven't been willing to walk myself. So in a few moments, I want to take a moment to tell you exactly why I'm giving away this business community I've created for the last 2 years, Long Path Creator Academy. I'm giving it away for free. And I'm going to show you how it fits into this vision of restoring shepherds and putting wisdom back in the seat of influence. So guys, I want to introduce you to a tool that I genuinely believe can help pastors build with integrity in the digital age. So stay with me. And I want to talk to you plainly now, not as a podcaster, not as a coach, not as someone selling you something, but as a pastor who knows the quiet pressure that many of you are living under. Anytime a pastor hears the words business, entrepreneurship, or digital products, there's usually a tightening in the chest because you've seen it abused. You've watched ministry turn into marketing, calling turned into nothing but branding. People turn into platforms. But let me say this clearly and with no spin on it. What I'm inviting pastors into is not hustle culture with a Bible verse on top. I built Long Path Creator Academy over the last few years. I invested over $60,000 of my own money, countless hours, Every lesson came from lived experience, success, loss, rebuilding, and then obviously from some of my amazing business mentors. Okay. And at one point, it was a $5,000 program. And as I began to pray heading into 2026, I really felt something begin to shift in me. And I realized this: the pastors and the church leaders who need this the most are the least likely to ever pay for it. Not because they don't value wisdom, but because they're already carrying too much. So I made a decision. I'm giving Long Path Creator Academy away for free. Not as a gimmick, not as a funnel trick, but as an act of pastoral conviction. Guys, Long Path Creator Academy is for pastors and church leaders who are already creating content every week. Guys, you're already writing sermons, teaching classes, creating devotionals, counseling people, posting thoughts online. This is stuff you're already doing. You're shepherding with wisdom, and you're doing it in an online format. And so what this academy simply shows you how to steward is how to steward your wisdom well, how to organize it, clarify it, package it, and allow it to serve people beyond Sunday, all without compromising your theology, your integrity, or your family. And let me be very clear about what this is not. This is not turning pastors into influencers. I want your wisdom to be the influence. It's not teaching you how to chase algorithms or teaching you a model to replace the local church. This is not about monetizing trauma or turning ministry into content. If that's what you're looking for, you will not like this. Here's the conviction underneath all of this. A financially anxious pastor cannot shepherd with the same freedom as a financially stable one. A constantly exhausted pastor cannot offer rest. A leader worried about making rent while struggling to preach abundance, this isn't about luxury, it's about margin. Margin to pray without hurry, to love without resentment, to lead without fear, to be present with your spouse, to be emotionally available to your kids. See, entrepreneurship, when it's rooted in wisdom and restraint, becomes pastoral care for your own soul. When I say digital products, I'm not talking about flashy courses and hype launches. I'm talking about simple things. Teaching series turned into study guides, sermons shaped into structured resources, wisdom formed into tools that help people grow. Guys, I'm talking about things that continue serving while you rest, reaching people you'll never meet, create income without stealing time. Guys, this is not about doing more. It's about doing something once, wisely, and letting it multiply. Imagine what would happen if pastors weren't constantly under financial strain, that churches weren't carrying unsustainable payroll pressure, shepherds had margin to disciple deeply, leaders could say no without fear. Guys, this isn't about pastors leaving the church. It's about pastors lasting in the church. Really, it's about building lives that look like Jesus, not just sermons that sound like him. So if you're a pastor or a church leader who feels the weight of provision and you're tired of grinding from Sunday to Sunday, guys, this is about caring for your family without guilt. I feel like that you're starting to sense there has to be a better way. So guys, what I want to do is I want to invite you into Long Path Creator Academy. No pressure, no hype, no obligation, just a resource built by a pastor. And now I'm seeing it clearly. I built it for pastors. The link is in the description. And if you're watching this on video, it's in the description below the video. If you're listening to this by way of podcast, it's in the show notes. And guys, what I want to do now is kind of shift here to something more practical. And I want to share two quick resources that make this podcast possible. One for pastors who want to build wisely, and one for those who want to help us keep creating space like this, okay? Then I'm going to close this episode by telling you where this podcast is going next and why I believe the next few years are crucial for shepherds. So stay with me here. I want to take a moment and share a couple of resources that are helping make this podcast possible. And that I believe can serve you well too. And these aren't ads in an old clunky sense. These are tools and opportunities that actually help pastors lighten the load, multiply their wisdom, build well without pulling you away from the mission of shepherding. You heard me talk about this already, but let me say it to you in a way that connects directly to you, right where you live. Okay. Long Path Creator Academy is a resource that I built to help pastors take the wisdom they're already sharing every single week, sermons, teachings, devotions, lessons, and steward it in a way that serves people, creates margin, and produces sustainable income without burning you out or exhausting your soul. Guys, this is not about trying to turn you into an influencer. It's not about chasing followers. It's about stewarding your God-given wisdom in a way that multiplies impact while preserving margin. And here's the pastoral heart behind it. I'm offering this program, which used to be $5,000. I'm giving it to you completely free. This is for pastors and church leaders who are already creating weekly content and want to build something sustainable without sacrificing their soul, their family, or their calling. If you feel that tug, that God's given you wisdom that people need, and you want to help shape that into something that serves and sustains, then I want you to go ahead and click the link in the description or the show notes. Guys, this is your invitation to build well with guidance, structure, and clarity, not hustle and burnout. Now, I want to tell you about another tool that's been on my radar, and I think it aligns with how we want to shepherd in the digital age. Faith Made is a company I've been with for over 10 years now. And Faith Made has a resource of church website and communication platform that's built specifically for ministry leaders and volunteers who don't want to waste hours wrestling with tech. It's designed to be easy, so you don't need web design experience. It's church focused with sermon libraries, event calendars, small group pages, connect flows, and more. Guys, it integrates well with tools that many churches are already using. It's supportive with templates and guidance that help your community engage without friction. In other words, it's a platform that takes website headaches off your plate so you can focus on the ministry you were called to. Pastors and leaders that I know have told me this kind of tool has helped them create a web presence that feels like a true extension of their church family instead of something they dread managing, okay? So if your church still struggles with a website that feels outdated or disconnected, or if you're frustrated trying to DIY something that just never works the way you want, why don't you take a look at Faith Made, links in the show notes. And finally, if this podcast is encouraging you, helping you think through the difficult waters of ministry, and reminding you that you can lead from union instead of urgency, I want you to consider becoming a Long Path Media partner. When you partner with us monthly, you're helping fund spaces like this, spaces that help pastors breathe again, think clearly, build wisely. Guys, partnership isn't a transaction. It's a community of support. It's like passing a cup of cool water to the shepherd beside you. So whether you give $5, $500, $5,000, every bit helps keep this ministry going and keeps tools like Long Path Creator Academy available to pastors who desperately need them. You can go to www.markcasto.co/donate. Again, that's markcasto.co/donate if you feel led to support this work. Guys, that's it for our resources, the tools and invitations that can help you build well without selling your soul. Now, let's return to the reason you came here in the first place. You didn't come here to learn how to hustle harder. You came to learn how to lead better, more wisely, more peacefully, more fruitfully. Not for the sake of success, but for the sake of the people God has placed under your care. So, as we close this first episode, I want to speak to you not as a strategist, not as a content creator, but as a fellow shepherd who knows what it feels like to carry more than you were ever meant to carry alone. Because the truth is, the years ahead of us are going to require something different for pastors, okay? Not louder voices, not faster churches, not trendier theology, but real, true shepherds. Guys, we're living through an overlapping where transitions are happening all at once, culturally, technologically, economically, spiritually. Everything feels accelerated. And people are anxious. Families are fragmented. Children are overwhelmed. Truth feels slippery. And the church is being pulled in 100 directions at once. And right in the middle of all that stands the pastor, expected to be a theologian, a counselor, a communicator, a manager, a fundraiser, a visionary, a crisis responder, all while staying spiritually alive, emotionally present, and financially stable. Guys, that's too much for any one human being unless we return to the way of the shepherd. Most of the damage happening in the church today isn't coming from bad intentions. It's coming from speed without discernment. But the kingdom of God does not advance at the speed of outrage. It advances at the speed of love, and love always moves at a human pace. A shepherd's not a religious event planner. A shepherd knows the terrain, walks with the flock, understands seasons, protects without panic, leads without coercion, and most importantly, a shepherd dwells with God, dwells with people, dwells in his presence. And friend, that's not weakness. That is strength anchored in trust. The shepherd's tent exists because I believe pastors are a key to what God is doing next in the world. Not celebrity pastors, not platform builders, but present fathers, grounded mothers, wise leaders, and patient teachers. Guys, this podcast is going to help you slow things down, tell the truth about systems that harm shepherds, call leaders back home to union with God, equip pastors to engage culture with clarity and not fear. And I want to help you build a life and ministry that actually looks like Jesus. Guys, we're going to talk about church reformation, money and provision, technology and wisdom, family and legacy, creativity and entrepreneurship, leadership without burnout, always through the lens of Christ, always with love, always with courage. Because, guys, one of the deepest convictions of my life right now is this: our children are watching. They are learning from us what faith costs, what leadership looks like, whether church produces joy or exhaustion, whether God is a burden or a refuge. Guys, the blueprint we model will shape the future more than any sermon we ever preach. And I believe with everything in me, a generation of whole, unhurried, joyful shepherds can quietly change the world. So here's my invitation to you: not to do more, not to sign up for everything, not to fix your whole life overnight. Just this: stay under the tent. Guys, I can't wait to get into this. We'll eventually go into the Song of Solomon, and I'll share with you chapter 1 that absolutely wrecked and changed my life. But until then, I just want to encourage you, come back next week. Let yourself rest. Let yourself think. Let yourself be shepherded too. Guys, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to stay present. The world doesn't need more religious noise. It needs shepherds who know how to dwell with God and walk patiently, kindly with people. And if that's the kind of leader you want to be, you're in the right place. This is the Shepherd's Tent, and I'm glad you're here. And guys, in our next episode, we're going to talk about why so many pastors feel guilty for wanting a better life and how that guilt is quietly destroying families and ministries. It's honest, it's going to be freeing, and it's necessary. I'll see you in the next episode.